Ultimate Fantastic Four, Volume 3, End Zone by Warren Ellis and Adam Kubert. This is issues 13 through 18 of Ultimate Fantastic Four. I hated this volume. It is just as slow, almost no pacing at all. For the first 3 issues, we do not see any kind of conflict at all. The first issue, it takes all of that issue for Reed to ask the government if he can go to the end zone and explore. And then it takes all of the second issue for them to actually get to the end zone. The second issue of this book ends with them arriving in the end zone. And then the third issue, they do a little poking around and exploring, and then they hear a message from somewhere, and then they arrive at the space station. And that's where the third issue begins. All of the conflict in this story is backloaded in this book. I cannot imagine anyone who was unfamiliar with this creative team or this series who maybe sees issue 13 and sees, oh, this is part 1 of a story. I cannot imagine anyone would stick through 13, 14, and 15 and then get to the good stuff. I have to imagine that someone saw these issues and said, this is incredibly boring, and then they just tapped out. I'm surprised I didn't tap out, and I had the whole story here. Once again, we have a little bit of Warren Ellis getting hot and bothered about how these powers would work in reality with how science works, and I do not care how their powers work. I don't care that in real life, if someone turned invisible, they wouldn't be able to see because light is bouncing off of your eye. I don't care. I just want to see Sue use her powers. I don't care that they don't make sense in a real science setting. If you want to write a science article in Scientific American, Warren, then do that. But leave the Fantastic Four alone. Also, once we finally get to the space station, the bad guy of this story is Annihilus, and there's some interesting stuff here. It just takes forever to get there. Once we get to the space station, Johnny Storm, he passes out. They mention early in the book that Johnny was possibly burning his body out with his powers. Again, more of Warren and his weird science fetish. And then Johnny passes out, so then they go back to their ship, and then Sue says he might be dying. We need to go back to Earth, and Reed says, okay, let me go tell Nihil, I think is his name. When they first meet, the translator translates it as annihilate and then nihilism, but his name is like Nihil in his language or something. He says, let me go tell that alien warlord guy that we're leaving and that we'll be back, and we'd like to have some kind of exchange between our race and his, and then that's when everything gets started. Nihilus, he wants to take their ship and go to Earth because his world, the end zone, is dying. It only has maybe 500,000 years left, and he will live much longer than that, so he wants to come to Earth. And then we leave what should be a really interesting, amazing alien world where the sky's the limit, because someone said, hey, what's more exciting than an alien universe? Las Vegas? No? Too bad. We're going to have the finale be in Las Vegas. And I guess I should give them props for finally getting the Fantastic Four out of the closet, so to speak. They have a very public fight with the creatures that work for Nihilus. I don't know how this is any different from them fighting a kaiju in New York City, how the army was able to cover that up in Volume 1, but then General Ross shows up here and says that they're not going to be able to cover up this. I don't know why this is any different from that, but I was getting real sick and tired of, I've talked before about Gilligan's Island Syndrome. This series, it takes 3 volumes for, at the very last page, they say, well, we're superheroes now. It takes that long for them to be superheroes. All of the previous volume and all of this volume all revolves around them wanting to cure themselves of being superheroes. But that's the whole point of the series. We come here to see the superheroes. If they cure themselves, there's no more series. Gilligan's Island, if they leave the island, there is no more series. I would have thought that anyone who gets paid to write for a living would understand that that is a bad idea. What they should have done after issue 6, after they finally get their powers, like 3 issues into Volume 1, after they get their powers, what they should have done was have Reed run some tests on them. It takes like half a panel, and then he says, sorry guys, there is absolutely 100% no way that I am going to be able to undo this. And then Ben cries about it a little bit, and then they all move on with their lives, and then we're not spending a full year on this series with Reed saying that he's going to try and undo this. It's a gigantic waste of time. We know it's not going to happen, and if it does happen, then we've wasted our time because now we just have a bunch of regular schmoes who don't don't have superpowers. That is very frustrating. Also, it's frustrating when these guys are grounded at the Baxter Building and they have to cut through 300 miles of red tape anytime they want to leave. That is just a waste of time. We come here to see them go on adventures. We don't want to see the army handcuffing them, and it's at least refreshing that at the end of this volume, now they are not a secret anymore. So now, in theory, moving forward, they will be able to leave the Baxter Building and do Fantastic Four-ly things which we pay to see. That was getting old real quick, and we only really had it for 2.5 volumes, but this reminded me of the post-House of M X-Men comics, where the government had Sentinels stationed outside the X-Mansion, and anytime the X-Men needed to go fight Magneto or whatever, they either had to ask the government for permission or they had to sneak around the government, and it just gets in the way of the characters having adventures, which is what we want, and it also makes the people who are supposed to be good at keeping these guys in prison, makes them look like complete idiots. Yeah, I didn't really like this. Also, for at least half the book, Johnny is in a coma and Sue is looking after him. So we have Ben and Reed are going to talk to Nihilus, and then Ben is pretty much able to hold off Nihilus and his henchmen on his own. So they're not really much of a threat if Ben can handle them by himself. I come to the Fantastic Four to see the four of them work together as a team. And it would be fine if you have one story where, okay, Reed is the one who figures out what's wrong and then he saves the day. And then in another story, Sue saves the day. And then Ben saves the day in another story. But we are now 3 stories in where we haven't seen the group work together as a team. They all decided as a team, we're going to go to Latveria and we're going to try and get the codes from Victor. Or the 3 of them went down underground to go and rescue Sue. Or the 4 of them decide we're going to go talk to aliens. But we don't get to see them work together as a team. And so this idea of, well, Ben can be the savior in this story doesn't work when we haven't gotten to see the 4 of them be the Fantastic Four at all in a 1.5 years of comics. I hated this. If there had been any more of the Warren Ellis written stuff, even if I have the whole series in trades, but if there had been any more stuff by Warren Ellis, I would be tapping out right now. I would not be going forward with this series, but the next volume is titled Inhuman. That is Mike Carey writing the series. I like Mike Carey's X-Men run a lot. I don't remember much about his Fantastic Four stuff here, but my hopes are high. At the very least, I cannot imagine that he is going to bungle it any more than Warren Ellis or Molar and Bendis. 0 out of 10. Hated this so much. Cannot think of anything worthwhile in this book. That's all that I have to say. I hope you guys like this video, and I will be back in the future with something else. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Catch you later.